Start. MTC 2121, Exercise 1. Viruses are indeed proving useful in several ways, thanks to their special ability to make their way into the interior of normal animal or plant cells. An example of this type of treatment is gene therapy. Sometimes a gene is faulty, and this fault can be passed on from one generation to the next. The main job of a gene is to act as code for the production of the proteins upon which every living thing relies. Proteins both provide structure for living tissues and drive chemical processes. If a gene doesn't carry precisely the right code, it may not be able to produce proteins normally. Gene therapy works by inserting a normal copy of the human gene in place of the faulty one. To achieve this, researchers have had to find ways to get the new healthy gene to the target cell without arousing the body's defenses and, once there, to penetrate its outer membrane to replace the defective gene. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 2121, Exercise 2. The disciplines that make up the natural sciences can be divided into two classes, those that are historical, and those that are not. For subjects like cosmology, geology is to reconstruct the history of the cosmos, the Earth, and the life forms that have inhabited it, respectively. For the mathematician, physicist, or chemist, on the other hand, history does not matter. The logical structures mathematicians explore are timeless, and both physics and chemistry deal with properties of the universe that we have every reason to believe are the same today as they ever have been, or ever will be. Thus, in principle, all the open questions in physics and chemistry could be answered this afternoon if the right experiments were done. Moreover, there is no reason to think that the outcomes of those experiments would be any different if they were done by other people, at other times, or in other places. The assumption that the conclusions reached by physicists and chemists are independent of time and place is fundamental to the way geologists, biologists, and cosmologists use them. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 2121, Exercise 3. In the first minutes of its existence, the universe cooled so rapidly that it was impossible to manufacture elements heavier or more complex than hydrogen, helium, and, in minute amounts, lithium. In the heat and chaos of the early universe, nothing more complex could survive. From a chemical point of view, the early universe was very simple, far too simple to create complex objects such as our Earth or the living organisms that inhabit it. The first stars and galaxies were constructed from little more than hydrogen and helium. But they were a sign of our universe's astonishing capacity to build complex objects from simple building blocks. Once created, stars laid the foundations for even more complex entities, including living organisms, because in their fiery cores they practiced an alchemy that turned hydrogen and helium into all the other elements. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 2121, Exercise 4. The ancestors of all species that are alive today have flowed back and forth across the globe for many millions of years. We should never assume that where we see a species today is where that creature's ancestors originated. Modern humans resided in Africa 200,000 years ago and subsequently spread across the world. Yet most of us alive today think of ourselves as natives of the regions where we were born, rather than of Africa. 20. When we trace our ancestry, we often focus our attention a few generations back, seeking a sense of place and personal identity. But these past places were also transient locations, and each ancestor transient, as our genes have moved around the planet's surface. It was ever thus. It is completely illogical, then, to hate a fellow human, or another animal or plant, simply because they or their ancestors were somewhere else at a particular time. The location of those genes in one specific time frame has no special meaning in the history of life. MTC. Good job.